have a feeling that I'm going to be challenged on this one, and I appreciate that. So here we go. So the other thing is, I always ask the people introduce themselves. It's just a
I mean,
more
I can if you'd
comfortable way
like
of
me
doing
to.
it. Yeah, and you just go, hey, this is Evan Patterson, renowned community builder and social media expert.
Renowned.
I'm here. I'm here to do some slapping. However you want to say it. Just a little bit of you is you, and we'll go from there. You comfortable with that, or I can introduce you? We can just use what I said.
We can use what you said. I just laughing at the fact of renowned. I was like, renowned. I don't think I've had that word used to describe me before. So thank you. But at the
All
same
right.
time,
Well,
I was like, I hate everyone. I don't want to be renowned. I want to be recluse. I'm kidding.
all right. Then we'll say, listeners, I'd like to introduce the all too secretive and notorious Evan.
With 22,000 followers, who's clearly very
Exactly.
private about his life.
Uh, this gentleman has a very busy Fiverr account, and
I'm never going on Fiverr. Make this whole rainbow the intro.
there you go. Fine. That
The
is
most
there. We
on
go.
brand intro ever.
Perfect. Perfect. I'll leave the padding statements to a different episode. All right. Folks, it's January 20th. Just trying to keep things in order. As everybody knows, I'm a procrastinator with a little bit of ADHD. So, uh, yeah, July 20th. So, July 19th of 2024, when you're finally hearing this episode because it airs, this is our conversation with Evan. So, statements might be a little out of date, but we're going to have fun with it.
Hey, I mean, also, you said January the first time too, so even
Uh,
better. Like,
it's been one. It's been one of those days. I don't even know why the rest of us have day jobs. We have to get on that entrepreneurial path that you're on.
which is funny though because I typically like work normal hours, like standard hours, because that's when my clients are available, But it's different. I can like get up and leave and do whatever I want to do whenever I want to because my clients don't care as long as I get my stuff done.
There you
They
go.
don't know when I'm doing it. They just know that I got it done on time.
Perfect. Perfect. You're not padding the billing like you're padding your LinkedIn numbers, right?
I think people wish I padded. Well, I don't charge hourly in most circumstances. There's very few circumstances where I'm being paid hourly. I'm usually charging for output, and the best way for me to do that is usually at a monthly rate, like a flat rate. So
Perfect.
yeah, that usually allows for me to you know, kind of control my schedule within reason. Also with that.
Good. I want to revisit the ethics of retainer based market work in general. I'm fighting a fruit fly. I don't know if we're going to do a vidcast of this or not, but facial expressions
Please
I'm
do.
getting back
Please
from
keep
you
the
from
fruit
my frantic
fly.
waving. All right. So everybody's now suffered through like they walked into the middle of a meeting on an elevator ride. Who are you?
Love that.
What's
Who
up?
am I? I would love for you to let me know who I am too. I'm kidding. So yeah, hey everybody. This gay male equivalent sounding voice of Kathy Griffin you're listening to right now is Evan Patterson. Yep, so you can call me Evan or Ev, either one works. My pronouns are he, him, his, or they, them, theirs. I don't really care, just don't call me late for drinks. And a host of several other clients and side hustles. So I do a lot of community marketing, consulting, content marketing, social media marketing, social selling, and personal branding coaching. As a freelancer, as a contractor, whatever the case, fractionally leadership, whatever the case may be, whatever works for y'all. Um, I do a lot of work in B2B influencer marketing, both as the influencer and as the person sourcing and running the partnerships and teaching people how to do that. That's my long spiel about my work life, which is also the name of a client of mine, pun intended.
Hmm.
Um, Outside of that, queer polyamorous man, 4 boyfriends. I live in Chicago, originally from the Detroit suburbs. No, I'm not from Massachusetts or from the deep south, contrary to some of the ways that I say the words like y'all or cotton or button. Love drag queens, love drag race, love video games, a lot of strategy, nerd, simulation management games, love sci-fi, love give me a good crime, who done it movie. We're good to go. But yeah, that's me.
There we go. You're a proud zillennial, so my zennial self might have a little bit of trouble keeping up. the elder
I can't
millennials.
keep up. I
Yeah.
can't keep up with my own generation, which is, like why most of my friends and partners are like 10 years older than me at a minimum.
My contemporaries. All right, buddy. So you went through the spiel, but and I hate to overly simplify it. You're a community person, not just a
Yeah, at the end
likable,
of the day, that's
jovial
my bread
guy.
and butter.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. So would you like to talk about community, or do you want to talk about
Sure.
what sounds good?
We talk about community. I love community. It's what pays the bills, you know?
Okay,
So
so we're jumping straight to the point. How does somebody jovial, somebody notoriously jovial, turn being liked and being comedic and being thoughtful into bill paying? How do we do that?
well, it's not that much different than how comedians make money, to be quite honest. I'm doing a lot of similar work to a comedian, but also like to a marketer at the same time. Like I'm also I'm first and foremost a marketer, right? Like I've taken comedian classes. I've been a comedian. I've done stand-up comedy. I've done improv, roast comedy, insult comedy. So one of my biggest frustrations of working in like the corporate America environment was like the definition of professionalism is being very suited up, whether that's like literally or figuratively. Being very one size fits all, which is not even possible or feasible in the way that you communicate. It just not being yourself at work, basically. The way that I talk in this or in any other live show or any other podcast or webinar, the way they talk in a meeting, in an interview with a client, is the exact same way, nearly verbatim, that I talk in a nightclub or a bar or at a party or on a date with my boyfriend or with my mom. I am the exact same person. Um, I never understood the value of code switching in that way. I do code switch a lot, but I don't code switch that way. You're still going to get that part of me no matter what. Now, what we talk about will change, but the way that I talk won't. So that informs good community. Community marketing is about adding humanity to your brand, or in case of companies, right? It's adding authenticity as a layer of why people should trust you and buy your product or care about what you have to say or learn from you or get your services. It's about incentivizing word of mouth, inducing FOMO, creating a cult following of fans, whether or not they buy your product or affected by those that buy your product. And you can't do that without being, I harshly put, interesting. You can't do that without being comfortable with getting on that soapbox, and you don't have to make people laugh. That's how I do it, but there's a lot of ways you can do it.
Yeah, I'm still confused about this whole you calling yourself a comedian and Kathy Griffin. I don't see how that the two correlate.
It's the voice. I
Oh, there we
grew
go.
up being I it's my voice. I got told all the time I sounded like Fran Drescher when I spoke, or Kathy Griffin. I don't have the airiness of a Joan Rivers accent to quite sound like her. Um but and usually my comedy style, like the types of humor that I love, is more like Jimmy Carr or
Okay.
Joan Rivers. So very cutting, very edgy, very dark. Um, Not something I would take a child to. I was like, I have no children with any no desire to have children. But like but that kind of view of the world helps. Well, one, it helps me survive, to be completely honest, but also it helps me pay the bills. It does. Like, people trust me when I'm able to, say the things we're all thinking but too afraid to say. But I say it in a way that has a bit of a social lubricant to it because it's in the form of comedy.
There we go. Is it I'm glad you hit on multiple topics. Like code switching is a big category for me. My best performing LinkedIn post was an article where I wrote about being a mixed kid that looks white as can be, but identifies more black than some black people I know. I'm gonna have to edit that out. No, I'm gonna leave it. I had to turn the profanity filter on because you're here, so I'll just leave it. Um,
And I'm toning down the swearing right now.
oh no, go for it, go for it. I love having the occasional E episode. We actually have that on the the social impact podcast we do. It's the nonprofit professionals you have to watch out for.
Well,
So
Melissa Moody at Gated would make the joke that she can't tell if the E next to any of the podcasts that I've been on is because of my name or because it's me being, explicit in the way that I speak. Man, enough about me on that part. So this
the
code switching article, did you code switch to write it?
um oh god, I'd hate to say it that way, but I mean, definitely an element of speaking a certain way or talking white is a
Yeah.
factor of that. Yeah. But
I have
I
to talk
appreciate
straight in some places. That's the thing.
we'll we'll have to code switch another direction later in the show and see if anybody keeps up. But there's a lot of power in authenticity, and I think I kind of want your opinion on code switching. Used to be the lubricant for acceptance. It used to be the ability to get an audience. And do you feel that authenticity, beyond unique authenticity,
Mhm.
is the key for engagement? And and you've used the word authentic and interesting. What do you mean by being authentic and being interesting?
Yeah, the person that I'm gonna get on the clock is the same person I'm gonna get off the clock. That's what I want when I'm buying a product or a service, or hiring somebody, or being hired by somebody. Um, I quite literally talk the same way that I do at work, outside of work, and I expect that of everybody around me. Granted, like I will curate parts of me versus code switch, which is, I'm going to act the same way that I normally would, but I might not bring everything up that I normally would. Um, and that's just more about reading the room. You know what I mean? That's less about hiding and trying to fit in. That's just more about, what's worth saying, you know? Um, and that is just kind of like what I'm looking for when I'm buying from products. So think about it when your friends are buying a product that they love, and months later, you are coincidentally looking for something similar, and your friend recommends that to you. They don't work at the company, but you trust your friend, and you trust their recommendations. I would assume most people have friends that if they buy something, there's a good chance that if you bought it too, you might like it. Birds of a feather. Um, Community marketing, evangelism is about creating that element happening on scale. We want that effect, that phenomenon to happen as many times as humanly possible. We want to create an environment to where either the evangelists at the company, or the brand itself, or the influencers that we partner with, or the other companies we partner with, or just honestly our customers. Anytime they open our mouth about what we do, like the sale is a lot simpler and warmer because it's like a friend saying, "Oh, you should probably try this," versus, "Have you considered trying this? Look at our demo and buy this product." It's a little less salesy, which is it's a little more about just making a recommendation that makes sense, which is why you're seeing more content now about relevancy and less content about personalization. Because, I mean, anybody can make anything personalized. It takes a truly attentive human being and a brand that cares about their audience to be relevant. And if you get it wrong, it'll show that you didn't do your homework and therefore you're not authentic. So it's a great litmus test, for brands to want to pass, um, to hold an audience, especially now that millennials, which have historically been a generation that cares way more about brand perception than any generation previously, it's an extremely hard generation to penetrate market wise. And once you get in there, you're great, you're golden, you can stick. But you've got to get their trust and hold it. And Gen Z, as they age and grows into decision making roles, the list goes on, it's only going to become more importance because they're just about exiting their high school years, the younger Gen Z members. So I think it's going to only grow in importance to have authenticity as um, a top priority. And that's going to come from hiring people with, diverse and unique stories and backgrounds and delivery methods of how they talk about what they're doing. People that aren't afraid to show the flaws in a company, the roadmap, put all your cards out there. Don't keep things secret. Um, I love when we all love when a company puts their roadmap on public, right? We've all seen the feature boards of like upvote this thing we should build. Those are all ways to build authenticity and trust between a company and an audience. I could go on and on and on, but that's an expansion of what that looks like. So interesting doesn't mean to be the funniest person in the room. Authenticity doesn't mean to be like the most vulnerable person in the room. It just means you have to be the most, honest with your intentions and execute and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's an important takeaway for a lot of people that maybe don't have the esteem to put themselves out there, that you can be heard and you deserve to be heard, and so long as you're genuine about it, somebody's going to listen, somebody's going to engage with you. I mean, that's sounds like a cure to loneliness. Anyway,
Well, that's actually
ki-
kind of how it got started,
yeah.
to be
Oh,
honest.
okay, perfect. I got two notes I'm going to boomerang back to. Let's hear how you started, and then I'm going to really quiz you.
All right. So yeah, little gay boy growing up in a conservative town in Michigan. But yeah, that's kind of like how I started making friends at the time. I was struggling to make. I always been a very extroverted, outgoing, social person, and I make friends in real life, in school and stuff. But um, I would sometimes struggle at school to keep friends, being the overly flamboyant, grandiose kid that I was. So I would make friends online. I was born in 1994, so it wasn't like an unheard of concept for my age group to play online video games that were like made for children. It was like right when that was starting to become a thing. So when your friend down the road has a birthday party, like you might help like plan that party as a kid. What do you do when your friend is on the other side of the planet? You do the same thing but in a video game. You create a party that hosts inside of a game. How do you invite people to that? Well, you create posters and advertisements and blog posts. Things I didn't know that were marketing. I thought I was just being a good friend, And after doing this for a while, like I noticed that I enjoyed creating events and activities that happened in games or adjacent to games, websites, forums. This is before like social media for gaming was the thing. Um, and I enjoyed that more than the games themselves, more often than not. And some of these gaming publishing companies took wind of what me and many other people were doing. I wasn't alone in this. There was a lot of people that were in my age group doing the same thing. Virtual magazines as a hobby. I had a radio station from age 10 till 16, and it had hundreds of thousands of listeners towards the end of it. All for fun. And but yeah, no, in my early to mid teens, I started getting publisher companies were like coming to me asking me for contract work to like create games, host events. I've hosted virtual singing competitions. I've hosted virtual racing events and game shows, online radio back when like Habbo Hotel had like online radio platforms. People were streaming before there was podcasts were really a thing. Um and I did a lot of very different things in the gaming space. However, I didn't live in a place where I could get a full-time job doing that. It was all contract based, not enough to live off of. So I left that space and went to a bunch of different industries. Did comedy, did nightlife, real estate, financial services, insurance. I tried everything. Restaurant. I did line dancing at Texas Roadhouse. Like I've done so many jobs, and eventually, to make a long story short, did a bunch of changes, got insurance, realized I liked the marketing more than the sales part, got insure tech, realized I liked the SaaS startups I was selling insurance technology to. And then that's how I landed in doing community marketing for like B2B SaaS tech startups, was through this like long wind of like trying different things. And now I'm like, well, how am I so good at this? Why do I know how to do this? And then I'm realizing, oh, I'm doing the exact same thing I did at 7. I'm doing the
And never
exact
since.
same thing I did when I was a child.
Mhm.
For fun. I am just now getting paid to do it.
There we
So,
go.
yeah, so I can say that I've been doing this since I was 7. I'm 29 now, but I can say that I've been doing this professionally and got my first paycheck since I was 13.
So, social media managers out there, if you enjoyed being called a 7-year-old with the competency of a 7-year-old, that's EVANPATTERSON.
Which is funny because I always say social media management is a part of what I can do. I do a lot more than social media management. So there's also a, in social media, I was like, well, how do you make more money than me? I'm like, because I don't do just your job.
Right. So there we go. Many social media managers that I speak to, that I've employed, that I've worked with, I would even say that they're introverts. Is
Yeah,
is
a
that
lot
the
of them are.
difference?
In the hiring profile, a lot of the time, yes. But community marketing and social media management are not synonyms by any means. It's actually like one of the things I vet for when I take on a client to kind of like understand their competency. Not that they have to be experts in this because it's still such a new like role in a project that so I don't expect them to. But it's just like understand like where they are on that spectrum of like not knowing what they're talking about to being experts on this and they can do the job themselves. And so community marketers that are qualified to receive any money for their work understand that social media management, social media marketing is a vehicle to execute community marketing. It is not synonymous with community marketing. Also, community marketing looks very different depending on the company size, stage, budget restraints, ICP, list goes on. But generally speaking, community market, like for me, like my community marketing type is like, yeah, I'll help with social media. The goal is to eventually want to hire someone to take it off my plate so I can focus on like community with partnerships, community with white labeling, maybe community with integrations, communities. Maybe you want me to um, test the waters of a new market that we are not ready to put all our eggs in the basket of yet. So I'm going to do hand to hand combat and like book meetings with these people and figure out, hey, not trying to get a deal, just trying to get a vibe for like, do you people like you care about what we're selling? And so it's a very different approach that a SDR or an AE would have, right? There's also like supporting the content strategy that is UGC oriented or influencer marketing oriented, and how do we make content that people want to share? How do we make content that people want to send to their mom and dads and their friends and their cousins and their coworkers and their bosses and their former employers? You know, community marketing is can be looked at from so many different angles. Um, so that's my favorite part about community marketing is it can bend to the whim of what your business is trying to do, and there's no such thing as a community marketer as exactly the same as another because the role is still so new and figuring out what it is.
And you had so now we're at a point where we've got two different casts of characters. About 11 minutes ago, you rattled off everybody that's involved in the desire part of the
Mhm.
relationship, the friends that are buying the product, the existing customers, the salespeople. And now you're following and a lot of us would stop there. Is that being community? But
Yeah,
now
it's
you're
definitely not
also
it.
no, and you're bringing that up. You're bringing up the second cast of characters that is on an industrial level, that are your
Yeah,
peers, that are your partners, that are your influencers, not in the sense that we traditionally use it these days.
yeah,
But
I'm a big believer in attacking from all angles.
do you think that that's something that traditionally organizations were doing, and then they broke away from it, and now there's this new job that's appeared that is doing something that other parts of organizations should have been doing all along?
There's
Or
been
something
some
that new?
organizations that have done this. Yeah,
Okay.
I think digital marketing kind of ruined it for everybody. Um, when so granted, like I don't know life before digital marketing, but I can
It was
read and watch
glorious.
documentaries, so like, and if there's anything I've noticed is like when digital marketing came about, everyone just cared about attribution. All of a sudden, all we cared about was attribution, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but for thousands of years as business, the concept of business has existed. No one gave a rat's ass about attribution until the internet was invented. So I'm like, we were fine until then without it. Why does it matter all of a sudden now? Still don't get it. Um, what people used to do back then was like market to every single person possible. So that way, when someone said, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z." The chance of somebody being in that room, hearing that, knowing that your brand can help them do that and brings it up would go up. That wasn't there was no name for that other than just marketing,
Yeah.
right? That was just what marketing was, right? So I have 4 boyfriends, like I mentioned at the beginning of this. None of them do a single job that is even like 10 degrees away from what I do for a living. Okay, we all have completely different industries and completely different jobs from me. One's in manufacturing for like frames that go into like different like craft stores. One is the GM of a fast fashion store, one runs a hotel and events and hospitality, and the other one runs all the IT for a university. Right? Completely different roles and spaces. Right? Market to them when you're trying to sell to me. Because what do you think people do when they're off the clock? Bitch and complain about what they're doing when they're on the clock? To
Okay.
who? Their partners? Wouldn't you want my partner Jeff to go, well, if you're complaining about that so much, I just saw an ad for this on TV that would solve that. Well, why don't you just go check them out? So I'm not saying you gotta waste your money and market to my partner Jeff, but what I am saying is that you shouldn't only market to people that are going to sign on the dotted line or be in the buying committee. You should also market to the people that are affected by that decision, because that's probably who's going to be a good champion for you, and bring you some referrals. And you also want to market to the person that hangs out with them, you know. So if you're the janitor married to the CMO and I'm selling to the CMO, best believe I'm taking the janitor out to dinner.
Yeah. And they can bring the CMO with them if they want.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm looking for how do I get closer to the demographic, to the ICP. And if that means I gotta meet your lawn care specialist, to meet your hair person, to then meet you, on the way out the door, then so be it.
This is this is interesting because I come primarily from sales, so I always have a sales mentality when I'm doing marketing. And like I said, Marcus was on the show earlier, and so he and I
Mhm.
we basically repeat what each other say, but do it for 2 hours and see if anybody stays awake. Um, Referencing back to one of the areas that I was very heavy in, the automotive industry, the sales process was all about relationships. You'd sell somebody
Yes.
something and you'd notice that their kid's 14 and be like, okay, 2 years from now, I'm selling them a new car and I'm convincing them that this now 16-year-old deserves this other car that they've had. Or I sell them something new, they trade
Yeah.
in their thing, and I sell them something even worse.
Yeah.
And you remember that and you ask for referrals and you do this work and you're your own ambassador at that point. And you're the
Yeah.
first person, and we know I'm old, we covered that earlier. You're the first person that I've talked to outside of myself that has called themselves a quota carrying marketer. And you didn't use those terms specifically, but
No, I don't.
you
Yeah,
said
but
in
yeah.
every aspect of your marketing, you use the word sell, that you're
Yeah.
interacting with somebody that is selling on your behalf.
Yeah. Yeah. It's simply put, yeah. I was an insurance agent at one point, and I also sold furniture for the now defunct Art Van. And what you described about car sales is the same logic that an insurance agent or a retail furniture salesperson uses. And so outside of B2B SaaS, like what we're talking about is not groundbreaking. There's a reason why people that don't work in tech or adjacent to tech or B2B are not going to listen to this. Car salespeople are going to be like, this is not new news. Why am I listening to this? Realtors are going to be like, this is not new news. Why am I listening to this? Insurance agents, list goes on, right? Roofers, plumbers, right? You know, a lot of people in trade, like it's so that's the other thing that I love about what I do for a living. The bar has been artificially set so low because everything in B2B marketing is about how to justify itself before it is even about creating any revenue, which is like even funnier to me because they think that what I do is the money sink. And I'm like, really? Because when Macintosh, before it was Apple, put all of their MacBooks or whatever the hell they used to call them back then, with like the translucent backgrounds of like the actual monitors had like they're huge.
That was an
They used to
iMac.
put them in
That was the first iMac. It came out in
yeah, they put
96.
them in high schools. They put them in
Yeah.
high schools.
You had Blueberry, you had
Ninth
Lime.
graders can't afford a freaking Mac. But when can they though? When they graduate?
Mhm.
When they get a job? What's the first brand that's gonna come to mind? Well, the computer that I learned how to use computers on, which was an iMac. And then the people went, "Oh, I wonder why millennials are buying so many Macs." It's not because Mac products are good, which I think a lot of them are. It's not even because of their marketing. It's because it's a lot of all we knew.
Yeah.
Right? So that was community marketing. Did anybody call it that? No. Was there any attribution? No. All I know is that when I pull this lever, this happens. And when I pull that lever, that happens. And if I don't pull those levers, nothing happens. And if I pull them in this order, something different might happen than if I pull them in the other order. That's a community marketer's entire day. It's just nothing but turning lights off, throwing shit at the wall, turn lights on, and see what's stuck for a living.
So for the few growth hackers that are still listening, and Evan made assumptions that anybody listens to this, we
Hey, there's a I know your audience. Okay, I
oh,
looked it
there we
up.
go. So I guess keep listening, and you'll learn something. And for those people getting ready to click on follow on Evan, just leave it alone. We're good to go.
They'll find other reasons to unfollow me, I'm sure.
Yeah, you just removed that post. Um, so attribution's trash. I'll agree with you on that in a heartbeat. It's a made up metric. It's vanity numbers. I came up in the era. Trevor and I were talking about this, that we didn't know what to quantify and qualify. I mean, we were literally making commercial websites that had odometers at the bottom of them. Like
I know exactly what you mean.
that
Yeah.
was that was the win. That was the win.
Yeah.
And we would sit there and hit refresh before we went into meetings. And we click
Yeah.
refresh nonstop before we went into meetings so that
Yeah.
we could justify the fact that we have a job.
Remember those websites that had, like, the website oh, you're talking about the website counter that was, like, at the very top or at the
Exactly.
bottom? Is that
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. That was GeoCities websites, free webs, bring that back. I remember those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a nerd. I was 5 years old trying to figure out how to code that stuff.
Dropping your animated GIF files in and all that other fun stuff.
Did you say just GIF? I'm like
I'll die on that hill, buddy. I'll die on that hill.
It's not giraffical, it's graphical. It's
I'll die on that hill. So we were talking about accents and different vernaculars we picked up, and I'll take my forgiveness on that one. But
I'm glad you can forgive yourself.
there we go. Somebody's got to. We've started using really silly terminology to try and make excuses for actions that we do that we know will have positive results, that somebody that doesn't understand what we do says, well, why are you doing this? Where's the ROI? Where's the immediate return? And one that comes to mind is dark social.
Yeah.
What, like, what? You don't seem to have any shame, but so I'm going to back up from that. Why do marketers in general feel shame in taking on activities that from their gut know will have a result, but from all these made up criteria that we've set on ourselves, we can't prove?
Job security. Simply
But
put,
then,
I think it's yeah.
so then how
Which
do
I
we
know is
emulate
stupid, by
you?
the way, because it's like, "Oh, so if I don't do these things, right,
No,
that
like I said, we
are
sat before
traceable, I'm
meetings,
gonna
we'd
lose
sit and
my
hit refresh.
job."
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I do the thing that I know will work, but I don't trace it, right? It's you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? If you don't do the thing that will work, but you do the thing that's traceable, you're gonna lose your job. But if you do the thing that will work but isn't traceable, you're going to lose your job. You're gonna lose your job either way. You're just gonna lose one slower than the other.
Which one's the for people that are like me and not necessarily a fan of this recession? Well, it's like my 12th one, so I should be used to them. What's what's the slow death as a marketer? Doing what you're told?
Yeah, honestly. So if you have so I understand if like you've hired a very green marketer, like why they might be like, you know, an order taker, right? but you eventually want to start seeing them like challenge you. That's a good sign, right? I I often use the phrase like I hate nice people, but I really what I mean by that is I hate agreeable people. Um, if somebody's got a dumb idea, say it's a dumb idea. Because the nicest thing you can tell somebody is that their idea is a waste of time. That's one of the nicest things you can actually tell somebody, as long as you're correct. But it is one of the nicest things you can tell somebody. And especially with digital marketing and social media and the competition to be heard and the attention economy and the list goes on, marketing teams have become order takers no matter what their title is. Even a VP of marketing or CMO is still going to turn into an order taker. They are taking requests from every department to create this, push this, get us this, whatever the case may be. And that wasn't the case 30, 40 years ago. We were supposed to be sitting in beanbag chairs and hammocks, drinking iced coffees, brainstorming which weird, wacky idea are we going to do this week? Because that's what worked.
Yeah.
And that is still what works if you let marketers have enough time back in their day to do that and not be order takers. AI is great at that, but there's also just stop giving them work that you could just do yourself. There's also that. And then there's also trusting your marketers. Hiring for marketers with a little bit of a personality emphasis, not just skill set, you know? You want a marketer that's going to tell you this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and here's why we should not do that, and here's an option we can do instead, or here's somebody else that can come up with a different alternative, whatever the case may be. You want the marketer that is going to do those things. You want a marketer you can trust. You want a marketer that is dependable and accountable. Now, so if you're a marketer out here who's trying to figure out what do I do because that takes months to build up that trust and rapport, that's where personal branding comes in. That's where referrals come in. That's where recommendations and social come in. That's where you find how to get some quick wins early. So while the long haul stuff is baking in the background, you know, so without the time that's done, it's right as the other stuff dries up, you know, do some unscalable things, you know. Also, don't work for companies that have a problem with anything I just said. There's also that. I've turned down lots of jobs and clients solely because of like I can tell no matter how many times I try to explain to them, they just don't get it,
Hmm.
and and it's never somebody who's doing well. That's also like the harsh truth. It's always a company that's doing poorly financially or has an extremely high burn rate because they're VC backed. They're growing for the sake of growth. They're doing some sort of talent land grab, you know. They're doing something that's not a wise business decision in addition to that. So you can now I used to learn that after I took the job. I've got a few years under my belt now, so I can kind of like see it coming. There's patterns, you know what questions to ask now. You know how to corner somebody into figuring that out. You also get your clients through word of mouth. So like, okay, well, I like this person and they must like that person, so I can trust their judgment too. But that whole ramble is just to kind of say that like, community marketing, good marketing, honestly, is only going to do well if you trust your team. And if they say, hey, I want to do this, but attribution is not going to be very easy or accurate, I'm not going to be confident in the data that's going to come out of this. I just know that it's going to work.
There you
Great.
go.
Ship it. That should
There
be
you
the
go.
combo.
I like that lean on. I like that lean on discernment and being able to not only expose your ideas, but being comfortable reflecting on ideas and telling somebody that's inefficient, that's ineffective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I want my boyfriend to do that with me. If I'm doing something stupid in my personal life, wouldn't you want your friends or your spouse or significant others or whoever to like call you out on it?
but somebody
Well, why
told
the
me to do
hell
it.
are we not doing that at work?
But I was told to do that. But I was told to do
Oh
that.
yeah,
That's why I'm doing
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's I don't understand the whole cognitive machine thing, which also is probably why I'm more entrepreneurial than ever before too.
Yeah,
I'm an HR violation waiting to happen.
I'll send you my ebook on working around HR violations. But
Quit before they hire HR. That's what I do.
there you go. There you go. Get ahead of them. I'm not
Yeah, be
fired. I quit.
1099.
There you go. So
Make them your client, not your employer.
there we go. There we go. The I do like that you offered up. You can't just tell somebody that they're wrong or that they have a terrible idea. You have to back it up with a suggestion for improvement
Oh
or a
yeah, because
tailor
one's
or an
just being an
alternative.
asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just build a community of assholes here and let's put everybody down. So, no, I
Yeah, you
appreciate
don't
that.
want an echo chamber, but you also don't want a, you know, I hate people like, "Well, let's just play devil's advocate." Like, there's a difference between, like, let's just make sure we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's versus, just being a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian, you know? So, that's the other difference. That's actually kinda like why I use so much humor in my work too, because it's a really good way to get people to trust you, let their guard down a little bit, and if you can trust me when we're talking about something that has nothing to do with work, I find it makes it easier for you to trust me about things that have to do with work.
Yeah, if the person's pretty lighthearted is stern about something, it's probably something on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm already the biggest flame since the Chicago fire, so that's not that hard to do.
There we go. There we go.
There's your gay joke for the podcast.
You we'll come up
For
with
the
more. We'll get
listeners
there.
who couldn't have told by now, it's okay, I am.
What? I didn't Lord knows I didn't say anything. I'm not the party
Yeah, no,
there.
don't
This is
cancel Peter, cancel me for canceling myself.
Oh, no. No, we're not going there. We're not going there. But that's an important part. Okay, so you talk about these cast of characters, you talk about these obligations on doing what's going to work. Not just what's
Yeah.
right, but what is actually going to work.
Mhm.
W- We know you own your voice and that you deserve to own your voice. How do you and you talked about character switching or a curated personality. There we go.
Yeah.
And I registered the domain while you're talking, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Um,
My lawyers are already on it too, don't worry.
the another hill to die on. The
Another hill.
how do you incorporate your personality into an established brand personality, or even not just amalgamate? Let's skip the amalgamation. How do you own the voice of an organization without polluting it too much with your own? And is that the only voice in the conversation that you get to own? I know you can't own your customer's voice. You can influence them. You can get the song stuck in their head. But what voices do you own? And how do you keep it clean?
So I controversially don't believe that anyone should own the company's voice. I think it's a fabricated, human made manifestation of the company. So it should represent the amalgamation of it all, the average of the voice. It should be it's the vibe, it's the first impression, right? Um, and one person shouldn't own that, at a company. Now there are people who own the execution, but the design of this personality needs to be a team. And we know that that logic works when you look at manufactured pop stars, when you look at characters in movies with higher, like blockbuster budget movies. These characters aren't invented by one person, right? There is a team of people behind these people that don't even actually exist. There's a look at the Barbie movie. More than one person had to come up with who really is Barbie, personality wise. How does she sound? How does she talk? What does she like? What does she dislike? Like that was a team. That wasn't one person. But that's the voice of the brand.
Hmm.
So when you look at the voice and the tone of how your company talks, the same way that Disney had to come up with, well, how is Mickey Mouse going to talk? You don't need a mascot or a character to justify treating it like designing a character or a mascot.
So companies are no longer color palettes and logo lockups. You have to
Their
account for
personalities.
a personality.
That logo is your mascot. That post that is underneath that logo, that's Mickey doing the dance in front of kids while they're in line to go on the teacups.
Okay.
And then that next post that's got Mickey waving saying, "Come ride the teacups." Now you've got your top of funnel content and your bottom of funnel content. right? So that logo is your Mickey Mouse. Now, that's where community comes back into play, though, because you don't have to limit yourself to just the logo. That's when you hire evangelists. That's when you hire influencers. And then you get your Donalds and your Daisies and your Minis. You get a whole cast then, right? So that is, it could be a logo. It could be a person. It could be made up. Look at Duolingo with the owl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Duolingo has a vibe to its own. The owl has its own vibe. And I'm sure Duolingo has influencers and evangelists who work there that have their own vibes too. It's all about creating as many different voices that attract the people that you're trying to attract and repel the people you're trying to repel. Not enough marketers talk about that part too. Um, and make it something people want to be a part of. There are people that love Duolingo, but every time they see that damn owl, they're like, God, I don't want to see that damn owl one more time. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Because they know what that owl sounds like and looks like and means to them. It's
Yeah.
identifiable. I
So
hate it
yeah,
when the
I
show's
own
just
me.
completely
I own
positive.
my voice. I just don't own the company.
I hate it when the show's positive, so I'm glad we hit that, and I think I want to keep going down that direction. One of the things that I've wanted to do is call people out, not individuals, because I can just take screenshots of DMs on LinkedIn all day long.
Yeah, I
But
just send cease and desist and restraining orders, but
you keep that lawyer busy. Maybe he's going to be slow on that trademark. Anyway, um, why do you feel that companies think it's a good idea to own employees' profiles in social? Primarily LinkedIn. That's an easy one to reference.
Yeah, well, one, it's illegal because LinkedIn owns your account, regardless of any contracts that you've signed. Even the the agreement that you sign when you create your LinkedIn account even says your employer can't. So it's null and void and not enforceable. If you fire somebody for what they say on LinkedIn, if it's not like discriminatory or oppressive, the list goes on in that category. It is a open close wrongful termination lawsuit waiting to happen. So do yourself a favor from a legal perspective. Don't even try. Okay. Now that we got the legal part out of the way, it's a bad look from an employer branding perspective. So good luck getting talent, or good talent for that matter.
But thousands of
And
people work here and they're so proud of working here that they post about it all the time and their banner says the company.
well,
What if
that's what
they're
Twitter said. Look what happened. That's what Sears said. That's what I could go on.
yeah,
IBM, Oracle, Salesforce, the exodus that's happening there right now that none of us want to talk about. But so it will eventually backfire. It will always eventually come to bite you in the ass. So don't sign up for the inevitable problem. You want your employees to quit working there because of good reasons, not bad reasons, right? So if they stop working there and then they bring this up, nobody's going to want to work there in the future. Also, once again, not saying previous generations didn't care about this, but we know statistically speaking, millennials are one of those generations that I will not buy from a brand if they don't treat their employees well. And that includes recent history as well. So it's going to take time for you to recover. We've all not bought. Look at Shein. If I'm even saying their name right, that fast fashion brand that
isn't it
tried to compete with
Shine?
H&M. I don't know. Just
It,
some
it's
made
gonna
up
go around
word. I
saying
have no
GIF
idea.
again.
I'm sure somebody's going to comment saying, "Evan, you're mispronouncing some sacred word." I'm sorry to those people. Um, get better PR. But the issue with that company though is like, yeah, they sent all these influences on this trip, and then they found out that all the people that are making the clothes are living in extremely dangerous situations thanks to the company, right? Well, they're not going to recover from that. Even if they change, it's a little too late in some categories for that. Because it's not just the fact that they did it, it's the fact that they did it after knowing that people aren't going to like this. Right? This isn't an accident. This is a choice, right? So the whole point is you don't want to be known as the company that is choosing to limit the voices of your employees, because those voices are probably why they're good at what they do in the first place. Probably why you found them. They're probably why your customers like them or like your product or your people because they're a representative of your brand to a degree, right? There's also the whole matter of oh, if they're happy working there, then I should apply. Right. You have to know the person. Employer branding is even bigger than people realize. We also know that statistically speaking, companies with strong social media presences via their employees outperform companies that don't. Sales reps who are on social media perform at one to was it 33 to 66% depending on the industry, outperform those that don't go on social media to do their jobs. Right? So we know, statistically speaking, that this is a stupid business decision from a DEI perspective, from an employer branding perspective, from a pipeline perspective, from a retention perspective. The list goes on.
But doesn't that
So,
statistic trigger another pet peeve? I mean, the show is literally named after it, the Pitchslap. These connect and pitches, the automation tools. Like what salespeople out there, if you're using a tool that sends out an automated message and an automated connection request,
oh, I
we're
think
not
I lost you
Pokemon.
for a second.
Just throw a ball at us and you got us in your kit. So I was rambling anyway. Yeah, massive pet peeve. Enough to like motivate this to happen. Um,
Yeah.
what's like two-parter?
Hmm.
What's the better way of doing it where we can do it at scale and we can hit the attribution numbers and we're setting our meetings and all that as a salesperson? And then number two, how do we push back when we're asked to do dumb ideas, as you would say?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of answer in reverse. Don't work where that's gonna happen in the first place is a really good way to solve it. Completely honest. I don't. That's actually. I wish I could find the way. Um, where I have to like constantly be pushing back. What's the best way to do it?
So do we
Yeah,
ask about tech stack up front? Like, is that an
yeah,
interview question?
yeah. I ask, what's the tech
What
stack?
tools do we have and how do we use them?
Yeah, and how do you use them currently? Why is that? Why? Why do you have that tech stack? Why do you do it that way? You know, if in the interview process you feel comfortable to give your ideas or thoughts about how you might change things or do things differently, that's a good sign because it means you trust the person, right? So to give a an opinion that is in contrast to whatever leader is thinking or saying, you know, you should be able to find a way in the interview process to say something, to find something about what they're doing that you disagree with, say that in the interview process, and then whenever the response is, they'll tell you everything you need to know about what it's going to be like working there in the future when they do have a dumb idea and you have to point it out to them. I always say try to find a dumb idea in the interview process. That'll be how because our interviews are about interviewing them back. You
Hmm.
know if you want to work there just as much as they want to know if they want you to work there. So, um, try to find an opportunity to do that in the interview process, and if you can't, make it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to the leaders,
Hmm.
especially the bad leaders, and I've been one, and I probably will be one again. That's habitual.
I've been one. I'll admit it.
Remember that in any congregation, dissent is one of the few forms of growth.
Well, they say wasn't one of the most American things you can do is complain. You know what I mean? It's like,
He says with the Fran Drescher voice.
well, I like it's. No, I just don't. I just. Why do you want people that are just going to be, saying yes to everything? I want employees
That's
to say no.
that's what we started with. The expectation of a marketer is to say yes and produce. Period.
And I'm like, no. I have a client right now that's like asked me to help them with all these great ideas and stuff. I'm like, great idea. Pay me more because that's not what you're currently paying for. I'm not even saying no. I'm just saying like no on the current circumstance. You know what I mean? Get really good, get comfortable saying no. And if that's hard for you, there's this thing that every single human being should do. And yes, I know it's not that simple because we live in America with a really fucked up healthcare system. But go to therapy. Yeah, every single person in this world should be going to therapy. That makes you really good at saying no and yes, because no is not a negative. No is not a bad word. No is an opportunity to save space for other things that are better yeses for you. So no is not a bad thing. No leads to yeses. not just in sales. It's not just like some sales mantra thing that we all hear about on Hallmark cards. It's actually a like an approach to life that you should really, embody. Now when it comes to doing these things scalably, that could be a whole TED talk on its own, but there's the post-bound social selling strategy. There is being a salesperson who's just really good at making content that attracts people coming inbound. There are salespeople that make content that warms up their outbound leads, their outbound motions. There are salespeople that just get really buddy buddy with the marketing team, and they know exactly when each campaign is going out and when, and they hijack it, which, by the way, is a compliment in this context. You know, you don't
So
wait
they're
for the
not a
marketing
culture
team to come to
vulture.
you. Come to the marketing team. And by the way, any salesperson who wants to know why marketing isn't telling them what's going on in marketing, it's because you're giving us too much work. We don't have any time to tell you what we're doing. You come to us, okay? All right, we're not coming to you. All right, you paid
Where's my
me to
pipe is the
generate
question
you
that I'm gonna
leads.
lead with. I don't care what you're
Yeah,
working on. Where's my pipe?
yeah.
I
And
gave
I'm like, well, I'm working on exactly that. I'm like, what do you think we're doing?
Oh, man. I gave you your innuendo moment. I gave you any moment you wanted with that
Listen,
one, and you dropped the balls.
I saw the I saw the balls and I saw the pipe, and it just was underwhelming. Okay,
There we
it just
go. I had to set you up for a second one. Thanks for taking it. Go ahead. Use that too. Go ahead. Take your moment.
I like how you said you set me up for a second one to take it. I'm dating 4 men. Okay, I think I can take a lot more than twice.
All right. We've earned our E on this one. So I'm skipping like, have you ever been blindsided or all that? Because honestly, I think you wouldn't care. I don't think you give a fuck if you've ever been blindsided. But
No,
you
no, I don't really have a lot of regrets or any sort of
no,
blindsided moments or anything. I have
no.
surprises in life, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, "Oh, what's next, life? What you got next?"
Well, okay, so let's hit on that. You, like me, are a multi-potentialite. I'm hijacking that term. I think the dictionary term is polymath, which means you can kind of do great in anything you try to do, and you,
If I
because of that,
want
you
to
take
do it,
on
there's
exactly
the
because of
asterisk.
that you take it on. Now, the medicated, registered with the government ADA description for me is ADHD, um, but I like to flower it up a little bit.
I have CPTSD, which I think is my flavor of that.
All right, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna give that a pause, and then we're gonna those of you who need to Google some acronyms on psychiatric conditions may take this moment. I'll hum.
As
And then,
American public schools have failed all of you, us included,
well,
it's fine.
yeah, because they either misdiagnosed or overdiagnosed or just didn't diagnose at all, but,
Oh, I've been misdiagnosed twice.
enough about your
Evan
dating
doesn't
life.
have I don't have anger management. I'm not anxious. I'm just traumatized is what we've discovered.
There we go. There we go. So excluding those moments,
Yes.
any career, any realm, what was your best mistake?
Ooh, my best mistake. I don't know. And this music. No, okay, so like I think so when I first dropped out of college, I felt like it was a mistake. I even tried to go back a couple of times. I know, and I took some classes at one point just because I knew that like there were some things that like I couldn't learn on the job or I shouldn't learn on the job. I took a lifestyle choices class, which is also hysterical given who I am as a person. But I thought it was a mistake, but at the time, I was like, "Ah, I should go back. I was like going back and forth, but I'm so happy and so proud that I did not finish college. I dropped out less than a couple semesters in, and I was so happy. It was the best decision I ever made. Um, Mainly because of, and I'm not knocking people going to college. I have a problem with how colleges function and operate. One, too expensive. Two, it doesn't move fast enough. By the time you graduated, half of what you learned in most degrees is already outdated. And the part that really pissed me off the most, this was the thing that got me to drop out, was the syllabus told me all these things that they're preparing you to be able to do, when you go look at the job descriptions for the jobs that those words on the syllabus are on in the real world, they say like 5 to 10 years of experience and a degree. There's nobody graduating with a 4-year degree with 5 to 10 years of experience. So it means I have 5 to 10 years after I graduate from this program before I can even apply for these damn jobs, anyways. And by the time I'm qualified to get that job, half these things won't exist. And I know that because at the top of the syllabus, it tells you that everything changes rapidly. So it's like, so why am I here? This syllabus is just a giant piece of hypocrisy. So, proved me right. I'm trying to use more positive language in this context here, but let's be
That's
honest.
not what this show's for, but okay.
All right, I proved the Fox News marketer that got fired from Fox, which is even funnier, by the way. How do you get fired from that shithole? You know, who was the adjunct professor that got in an argument with me because I told him, so why is the math ain't math in here? And why am I half your age paying to be here and I have to tell you this? Those are the last words I ever said in a college.
There you go.
I got escorted out by security pretty quick. So,
And you've been
yeah.
thrown out of nicer places. I'll give it that.
I've been thrown out of worse places too.
Yeah.
But if there's anything I've learned in my 29 years on this planet is I have yet to be wrong when it comes to calling out bullshit. I'm not saying I've never been wrong, but I am a really good bullshit detector. And it always comes out to that person. So, you know, it always comes to fruition within a couple of years in my experience.
So then
So,
we're falling back to authenticity.
yeah. Yeah.
You're not the only
Really, yeah.
bullshit sniffer.
Well,
Yep.
because the guy even reached out to me a couple years later after he found out that I was like doing very well at the thing that he said I was going to be awful at because I wasn't going to keep taking his course. And he goes, "Well, why are you so good at it?" I'm like, "Because I just took everything you said into the opposite. And also, I could tell that you didn't even really buy what you were saying either. You were just teaching us stuff because you were told to teach us that stuff because that's what your boss told you to do when you worked at the job that you got fired from."
This is a thematic because good old Marcus Kauke. We were talking about the
Yes.
same thing. You were going to go there with that. I'll let you and him hash that out. But you know, the joke we were making was referenced an old Aqua Teen Hunger Force, old episode, the first episode, Rabbit, and he's saying, "Behold my
Never
beautiful
seen it.
beast. Now spray the perfume in its eyes because that's how it happened to me." There's no logic behind it, but it seems like we're all
I was like,
doing it.
"Is this anecdote going somewhere?" Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I am 10 years older than Evan. Actually, more than that, but we're going to drop it. We're at least in the same bracket.
my two of my boyfriends are older than you, if that helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
if it does. If you don't get my pop culture references, I'm just irrelevant. But
I don't get their pop culture references either, but you know, that's the third and the fourth pipe, you know.
oh, that was in a work conversation. Nobody had heard of Alf.
Wait, Will Ferrell?
No, Alf. A-L-L. Oh my God. A-L-F. Alf. Alien
Who's
life form.
Oh, I thought you said
See,
Elf.
this is what happened to me. Somebody had made a comment about eating cats, and out of context, I referenced Alf.
No idea what you're talking about.
Perfect. You sound like my wife. All right. So
Voice too?
yeah, I'm glad she's not around the corner. Anyway, no, I think the difference is you're actually laughing at things that I say because they're funny as opposed to just that I'm saying them.
I'll let you believe
But
that.
perfect. Perfect. You're laughing at your upcoming one-liner to toss at me. All right. So
No,
you're
you've already read yourself well enough. Why
oh,
already?
do you not
Why
notice
shade
the
you?
library behind me? It is never closed. Told
I
you.
really hope the
You want to
video
get yeah, well, we can talk in code if you want to do that.
No, that was
Um,
fantastic. I love it. I will say though, keep this in the episode. This is probably one of the most entertaining podcast interviews I've ever been on.
thank
It's
you.
up
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll have to change the premise to just beat on Peter for a while.
It'll be the most boring show ever
Yeah,
immediately
there we go.
after
Name
this.
of my sex tape. Um,
It would be on a VHS tape too, wouldn't it? You said tape.
no, Betamax. Betamax.
I'm Googling
There you go.
What's
It
Betamax?
it occurs to me, well, one of the few laser discs I have left is Forrest Gump, one of the greatest movies ever, and that movie is actually the same age as you, so
I hate that movie.
Betamax is a, wonderful example of a better product marketed the wrong way,
Well, I
and the
mean,
strength of community and partnerships exiting it, just like,
that's a lot of
HD
marketing
DVD
plays,
or
though.
something. HD DVD lost out to Blu-ray, but it was also it was our DVD was also a known term, so how did HD DVD lose to Blu-ray? Like, isn't
Yeah,
that
I never
crazy?
really thought about that. Yeah, that makes sense. I often forget that that was a thing we used to do, um,
Compete
because, like
in media formats?
well, like, physically buying movies and TV shows, like, physically having a tangible object that you would put into a machine.
Okay, I gave you a couple seconds to do something with that, but
No, I
clearly
just
you weren't
forget that that's
interested.
a thing. That's it. That's the anecdote. There's no punchline with that one.
Have to have you look up, like, zip drives or something. There we go,
I know what a
you
zip
want
drive
to
is.
okay. There was an era around 2000, 2001 where people were selling NetPliances,
I was in 1st grade.
okay? You have to look up NetPliance, and my other favorite marketing toy of that era, the
Net
Q Cat. The Q Cat. It is a infrared barcode scanner shaped like a cat that was invented by Tandy Corporation to scan the barcodes of items in the Radio Shack catalog to order online. And the only other company that supported it was GQ magazine. So you could flip through GQ and scan barcodes with your Q Cat because that's what men who read GQ want to have a cat shaped barcode scanner. It was
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, they've got all
we
their
were
marketing off there.
yeah, we were kind of all over the place.
Why would they do that?
I don't
Why a
know.
cat? Which I mean, I'm over here like acting like men wouldn't do that though. My partner Jeff literally has 10 cats. That's not a joke. There are some jokes I can make about that I don't know if I should make on this podcast, but he's got 10 cats.
Well, I think we decided, with the exception of my computer crashing, there's no edits happening here. I think that's just the plan.
Fair enough. I mean, he watches me do what I do for a living all the time, and he says it makes total sense to him, which is even funnier, by the way, when somebody who runs IT for a university, somebody who's so far removed from like go to market, understands everything we're talking about better than most marketing and business leaders that I've met in my career. And it's like not like that my partner should be stupid or anything. It's just like he should be the last one to understand this, but he
He's
gets
not
it better than most people who
he
do
hasn't been
it.
told what to do.
Well, actually, I think that you're right. He hasn't he doesn't have any bad habits to break. So he
Right.
because I the amount of times I explain what I do. I don't know what your wife does for a living. Does she do anything similar to what you do for a living?
No, she's a supply chain executive. So you want to talk about acronyms and confusing statements? We'll get into that. Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah. So, but like when tell me if it's different with you and your wife, but like when I talk to my partners about what I do for a living, they'll get it. They won't understand, like, the jargon. I might have to explain some of the jargon, to them, but, like, when you really just explain, like, how you would tell this to, anybody really, the average person gets it. And and then when you tell them, like, what's going wrong, or I complain to them about, like, this leader wants to do it this way, even though it's objectively one of the worst decisions they could be making, and I've already pointed out to them that their defense is, well, that's what we've always done, without using those words, you know. I'm like, it's just so infuriating. I'm like, and they get it though, and they're like, well, why doesn't he just go with your idea if everybody objectively knows it's going to work? And I'm like, that's just marketing. But in their roles, I'm like, a lot of these other roles, like my partners, like they're responsible for merchandising. They're responsible for making sure servers don't go down, right? They're worried about supply, like making sure like this thing that we built in this factory gets to where it's supposed to go on time, right? So in their world, it is encouraged and it is not controversial by design of the role to say this is a stupid idea and here's what we should be doing differently, because there's a lot that could go wrong very quickly. Things can compound. There's a lot more fast decisions making, right? Marketing's not as fast as some of these things. So I often wonder if, like, with the role being a little slower by design compared to a lot of other professions in the world, if maybe that's also what hinders its progress, which is
Hmm.
incredibly funny to me, considering it's also one of the most, it's one of the roles that requires the most innovative, creative people in order for it to do well. So it's like, so now are we just shoving people into a creative, innovative role that aren't innovative and creative, but they're just really good at, like, being a good cog in a machine and creating marketing campaigns that their boss approves of versus what actually would work well for the business and the brand? It's wild to me. Every single marketer that I know that is doing extremely well in community or dark social is also the same marketer that probably been fired 4 to 5 different times in their past, and half of them are probably because of some sort of cultural, social reason at the company. I've had so many situations at companies where where we've split ways because it's quite frankly just couldn't get any buy-in. I'm like, why hire me? Why hire me if you're not going to buy into any of my damn ideas?
Yeah.
It's such a frequent problem for marketers. And then, like, why are you like a bull in a china shop? Why are you so rambunctious? So, like, this is this way. Like, well, I'm only good at what I do because of who I am. So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, and you knew what you were getting when you bought it because you told them up front.
Oh yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things about making content as a personal brand is it's a really good way to, like, vet people out. Although I did say in the last year, probably do the math if y'all want to, did have a company that said, "Oh yeah, we love your content. We love your style. We love how divisive and controversial you are at times. We love the way you do things. By the way, now that you're here, don't do that or we're gonna fire you.
Tone it down.
Tone it down." Or my favorite, this company did not do it. The company I'm talking about in the story here did not do this. But I've had companies are like, "Oh yeah, we love that you're, like, openly gay and polyamorous, and you love to talk about these things because, yeah, it should have been totally normalized at work. It's not here."
We're not here to set that pace. We're here to just get our job done. There are
Yeah,
other
do that
organizations
elsewhere.
that
Don't
can
do
lead
that
that charge.
here. Yeah, or don't do it
Exactly.
while you're here. Don't do it while people know you work here.
Yeah. So there's your interview question. Do you pay for a gym membership, and do you ever go to the gym? And then you'll know. Are they just buying you to say that they're affiliated with you?
I've
And
had that happen. I've had companies that, like, they're trying to sell me on the job because of, like, they just see, like, "Oh, he's got 22,000 followers at Fitter ICP. Let's hire him." I'm like, "You don't even wanna know if I'm qualified?" Like, I know I am, but you don't wanna know?
yeah,
That's scary.
there's 21,000 followers. The show is
Yeah,
sponsored by Fiverr and Walt Disney.
oh
And
my god.
so I've kept you. I have a feeling that you and I would appreciate a round two. I don't know if anybody listening would, but if you want
I'm
more
down.
time with Evan, if you've enjoyed this Kiki and you'd like to have your own, linkedin.com/in/Evan Patterson, traditional spelling of both, because he's a very traditional man.
Clearly,
Um, clearly.
clearly. College dropout, refuses to own a car, refuses to own a home, 4 boyfriends, refuses to get married, refuses to have children, has PTSD, works in a profession that, according to the IRS, didn't exist until 5 years ago.
All this and more in the show notes, folks.
Super conservative and traditional, clearly. Yeah, anti-college, pro-sex work, you know?
Well, Evan, I'll have to say thank you for slapping it in front of us. And we'll pick this up
It?
again.
All 4 pipes? Maybe
There
5?
we go.
I don't know, I'm not much of a pipe layer. I like to, inspect the results afterwards, though. I'm more of that person.
And we found the part we're cutting.